Meghan a geriatric mother. The family claims and states that Meghan had a hysterectomy. How can a woman with a hysterectomy be pregnant? And most of all, why did the family, royal family, go along with this? And what's going to happen now that this has come out? This is a punishable crime. This is fraud at the highest levels.
It looks like the stomach is fake, where the baby, I swear that's the first thing I thought.
If you had those things, it would be very easy just to put them out there and say, this is what happened. You know, this is what it is.
Meghan Markle's official Sussex.
Fraud at the highest levels. It is the most dangerous phrase anyone can legally use about the British monarchy. But the Sussex PR machine is finally panicking.
And he says B, at least one pregnancy was via surrogate, making the child ineligible for the line of succession. C, she wore a moon bump or other fake pregnancy tummy.
The internet's biggest defenders are desperately trying to blame the public. But Lady C isn't backing down. She is asking the one devastating question Meghan cannot answer.
I would be very disappointed that people would be so easily duped by this con woman.
And when you're pregnant, there's not a pillow under your skirt. And there's live footage of her walking towards camera with her abdomen swaying left to right in a black and white checkered dress.
A woman who fires off legal threats over minor slights has gone completely silent on the biggest accusation of her life. And silence isn't innocence, it's an answer.
And I have spoken to doctors, nurses, many women who've given birth to children, and all of them say the same thing. Those photographs of Meghan and the way the baby bump performed are totally unexpected, and they're not aware of any baby, any pregnant woman who is genuinely pregnant having her bump perform the way Meghan's has performed.
Let's do the monarchy math on the actual paperwork. For every other royal birth in modern history, a named doctor signs the easel at Buckingham Palace.
Do you remember Meghan actually refused to use the hospital that was usually used by royals and refused to use all of the normal medical staff, and there was all of the weirdness over the timing of the birth of Archie?
For Archie, the line where the doctor's name should sit was left completely empty. They called it privacy.
The royal family is constrained by the law. Harry managed to get Archie's birth certificate as a result of the claiming that Archie was born at Portland Hospital to a woman who was identified at the time of the birth as the Duchess of Sussex, but was not Meghan, was not Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, because had it been Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, they wouldn't have needed to amend the birth certificate to eliminate Meghan as the possibility of the woman who gave birth to the baby. There's all of that. These are all legal realities that the palace can't work its way around. You can't work your way around. I can't work my way around. The mainstream media can't work its way around.
But Lady C points out the brutal truth. Privacy is not telling the press which hospital you are using. Secrecy is making sure no independent soul can legally confirm what happened in that delivery room.
Let's remember she intended to call the child Lilibet, and let's remember that the obstetrician that she has named as her obstetrician not only deals with surrogacy, but her husband is an expert in surrogacy, and that their practices overlap. Let's remember all of that, and let's remember also that the doctor immediately, as soon as the child was born, cancelled for after that month every other patient. It's virtually unheard of for a doctor to do something like that.
And then it gets much stranger. A month after Archie was born, his birth certificate was quietly rewritten. Meghan's name was stripped clean off the document. You do not erase a mother's name from a birth certificate unless there is a severe legal question about who actually delivered that child.
Hugo Vickers is a cautious guy. He's a guy who has very close connections to the royal family. And a lot of what he says, you have to read between the lines. But it was very telling to me that he seemed to be speaking about the concern within the British royal family and the sort of puzzlement that she is the only woman who gave birth and then subsequently went into labour later in the day. They know something's up here, don't they? Or they at least suspect something's.
The only doctor they eventually named happens to specialise in surrogacy. And miraculously, her clinic cancelled every other patient on their books for the entire month. The absolute cheek of it. That doesn't happen unless you have something walking through the waiting room that you desperately need to hide.
What Hugo is actually saying is the birth has raised questions of fraudulence because you cannot give birth after you have given birth. So he's saying the announcement and the whole failure of the timeline to coordinate.
Then there is the timeline. The palace officially announced she went into labour, and just 20 minutes later announced she had already given birth hours prior. Hugo Vickers, a highly cautious historian, basically spelled it out on live television.
She did give birth, and then she'd given birth, several hours before. She'd had 2 epidurals, and then she was home within 2 hours, and now we've learnt that she'd suffered from dangerous, the eclampsia. And I'm sorry, no woman after 2 epidurals is just walking out of hospital a couple of hours later, sent on her merry way.
You cannot go into labour after you have already given birth. Harry claimed she had 2 epidurals and casually walked out of the hospital 2 hours later. Any woman who has ever given birth knows that is a biological impossibility. The math simply does not add up.
Centuries of healthy skepticism and caution were therefore discarded. It now emerges rather naively, thereby letting in the possibility of an interloper whose actions were more reminiscent of a hustling operator than a woman of good and regal repute, with the result that her actions would actually encourage the public to question whether one of the greatest scams of all time had been perpetrated upon the royal family and the several nations whose head of state originates according to the rules of legitimacy, which the now plainly wise custom of witnessed births, clearly signed off by legitimate medical witnesses, were intended to preclude and had since 1689 precluded.
For the first time in the modern history of the monarchy, no independent medical witness has signed off on the arrival of 2 children who sit directly in the line of succession. Every other royal mother cleared that bar without blinking.
Meghan at the Albert Hall. How many weeks pregnant was she supposed to be? Was it about 8 weeks? And she looks as if she's at least 5 months pregnant.
Now let's talk about the part that went viral. The historians can argue about certificates all they like.
And while the historians argued about the certificates, the internet was looking at the pictures. And the pictures did Meghan absolutely no favours.
Meghan didn't gain any weight on her bust. They gained weight on their arms. Meghan didn't gain... Look at those skinny arms. And also, why is the belly several shades browner than anywhere else? It's not supposed to be browner. Skin, when it stretches, gets lighter. It doesn't get dark.
And then Lady C delivered the line that sent the entire saga trending. Why is the belly several shades browner than everywhere else?
The weight didn't go on her arms, it didn't go on her face, it didn't go on her legs, it didn't go on her bust. Where did that 65 pounds go? It was never 65. Also, Meghan has a propensity to exaggeration. Now, there's no doubt that she did gain weight after both children were born, but she didn't gain weight before, certainly, Archie was born. And off that photograph of her being about 27 months pregnant with Lily, and she's about to drop kid, or so she'd like us to believe. She has clearly not gained weight anywhere else except around the moon bump and the brown moon bump. So, I mean, are we dumb? I really wonder who is the fool. Is it us or is it Meghan? Because somebody's detached from reality, and I don't think it's the rest of the world. I think it's Megsy Baby.
Skin doesn't go darker when it stretches. It goes lighter. Either it was heavily photoshopped, or as Lady C bluntly put it, she strapped on a brown moon bump. Megyn claimed on her own podcast she gained £65. Where exactly did it go?
Fourth birthday, Megyn posted a never-before-seen video of herself.
Then came the dance. For Lilibet's birthday, Megyn released a never-before-seen video of herself frantically bouncing around a hospital room, supposedly heavily pregnant and trying to induce labour. It backfired spectacularly.
How you can bend down, how you can open your legs and go right down, which is actually incredibly crude. And she's just letting it all go. Why has she waited 4 years, on Lilibet's birthday, to actually show when she was born? You know, it's absolutely horrendous.
It racked up 21 million views in a single day. And even mainstream commentators who had defended her for years took one look and completely changed their minds.
It looks like what you'd get if you put like a pillowcase full of like socks or something under your dress. You gotta look up close. There's very strange bumps coming off of that pregnant belly. I don't know why, Stu, but for the first time ever, I'm kind of like, is this something we should be indulging? Because it doesn't look normal to me. The belly doesn't look normal, doesn't look like where a pregnant woman's belly is, and I don't understand what all those bumps on the belly are. I don't get it.
That's interesting. Yeah, it does look different, I guess. I mean, I suppose it's possible that, I don't know. I wasn't there. But I will say I noticed the same thing you're noticing looking at it. I mean, it's the first thing that I think kind of pops into your mind. It's like, what's going on there?
Why is her stomach so bumpy? Maybe they had stuck some monitors on there, but normally they don't give you like remote monitors on your belly. I've had 3 kids. All the monitors they stick on you are connected to the thing that's right next to your hospital bed. And she wasn't wired up at all. I don't know what's going on under there.
It looks, she said, like a pillowcase full of socks.
Megyn Kelly pointed out the obvious. You are wired up to countless medical monitors the entire time you are in that hospital bed. Yet in Megyn's video, there wasn't a single wire in sight. Lady C calls this Dupers' delight, the pathological compulsion to flaunt the exact thing you ought to be hiding. Nobody is keeping this devastating story alive, except Megyn herself.
35 million people have looked at her bouncing belly, and I mean, it is an enormous number around the world because it is breathtaking. That's what she wants, my goodness me, I've done it.
She simply cannot stop poking the bear, and every time she does, millions of people get a good, long look at the glaring inconsistencies in her story.
If Megyn had admitted that, her children would not be in the line of succession. They might have an honorific title, but all she has ever wanted is for the kids to be in that line of succession so that her hopes of one day passing the British throne down through her line is not ruled out.
So why would anyone orchestrate a deception of this magnitude? There is a motive under all of it, and Lady C keeps circling back to the oldest one in the royal playbook. The line of succession. If a child is born through a surrogate, the rumour goes that fundamentally complicates their legal claim to the British throne.
And the Queen could not believe that she had given this girl, this scrubber with the most appalling reputation, that she had given her an opportunity. And she had believed that because Megyn had allowed her to believe that she wanted to join the team and work as a royal and do good as a royal. And she felt utterly betrayed that she had been manipulated the way she had by Megyn. And she also felt betrayed that Harry had been manipulated and that Harry had voluntarily jumped on the bandwagon and slit the Queen's throat.
And the line of succession was the whole point all along. The Netflix deals, the opera grievance, the royal titles they fought tooth and nail to retain in America. None of it lands the same if the children aren't legally where everyone assumed they were.
She was also furious about the whole surrogacy business and all of the speculation and all of the antics surrounding that. She thought the whole thing stank to high heaven, but there was nothing but her hands were tied, not only legally, but morally.
The person who was allegedly most troubled by all of this was the late Queen Elizabeth herself. According to Lady C, the Queen thought the entire surrogacy business stank to high heaven, but her hands were tied both legally and morally. As the head of the Church of England, she could hardly start demanding DNA tests of her own great-grandchildren.
And she was absolutely spitting bricks when she discovered that they had named the child Lilibet. But by then, of course, it was too late to do anything. So she did the gracious thing and just, well, she didn't keep her feelings that much to herself. Of course, she did express her feelings privately to certain people. But she was absolutely spitting bricks about it. But Meghan has inadvertently admitted that yet again she indulged in Dupers' delight.
So she did the only thing she could. She maintained a dignified silence and notably made absolutely sure there was never a single photograph released of herself holding Lilibet. Not one. When they hijacked the Queen's most private childhood nickname, she was reportedly spitting bricks.
The moon bump story can no longer be ignored. Now, Meghan might try and ignore it, but it's out there in the mainstream. And the fact that Christopher Boozy, the spiritual leader of the Sussex squad, Meghan Markle's chief troll, is now publicly for the first time acknowledging that there is a real issue.
For years, the official PR line was that this was just a baseless conspiracy theory driven by trolls. But when the Sussex squad's own chief defender publicly acknowledges it's a massive crisis, the accusation completely loses its fringe status.
She gave birth to them and she has quite deliberately caused doubt and she has created mischief, knowing that it would damage the royal family, which would show a level of spite and malice that is truly not only sick but evil.
Look at who is talking now. Royal historians, primetime American anchors, and major mainstream commentators who have sat across from every senior royal expert in Britain.
But now, Milo Yiannopoulos, the American right-wing firebrand, is joining the party. For people who don't know, Milo Yiannopoulos, a very controversial American political figure, but he's been right first on a load of stuff that the mainstream media have avoided.
This is no longer a dark corner of the internet. This is the global mainstream media backing slowly, and very nervously, into a reality they spent 5 years calling unspeakable.
I believe that they lied, and I believe that the royal family didn't join in on this big cover-up. I think that they lied to the royal family, and by the time the royal family found out, it was too late.
The theory goes that they lied to the royal family early on, and by the time the palace realised the staggering scope of the deception, it was far too late to detonate the scandal without destroying the institution itself.
Come clean. It is a case of saying that, isn't it? It's saying, come clean. If you've got nothing to hide, then, then what's the big deal?
Even the typically reserved British broadsheets have effectively begged Meghan to just come clean. If you have nothing to hide, what is the big deal? Tom Bower laid a version of this out in his book, with his name attached. The Sussexes, who will sue over a bad headline, never once threatened him with legal action. You don't sue over the things that happen to be verifiable.
Sussexes only will talk to people who repeat their own narrative.
Yes.
And who they can control. So the idea that you could get the truth from the Sussexes is contradictory.
Every single critic is asking for the exact same modest thing. Not a dramatic confession. Just show us the basic paperwork that every other royal mother happily produced without a fuss. It is a question Meghan could permanently end in a single afternoon.
Fact that people doubt whether she was ever pregnant with either of Harry's children. If she's so concerned about that, why doesn't she simply do what every other royal woman has always done and issue the proof that she produced those children, signed off by doctors who are able to verify that those babies popped out from her? It's really simple. If she wants to clear up the mystery that she has created, she has the means to do so.
One phone call to a doctor, one document. The whole cruel conspiracy would die overnight, and the entire world would owe her an apology. But a woman who has never once in her entire public life passed up a chance to defend herself does not suddenly go quiet over an accusation of this magnitude. Quiet because she has nothing she is willing to put on the table. Lady C predicts there won't be a grand exposure, just a slow, quiet removal of Harry and the children from the line of succession behind closed doors. Until that one piece of paper appears, the silence is doing more damage than any answer ever could. So, what do you think? Drop your verdict in the comments. Hit that like button to help push this to the algorithm and subscribe. The Monarchy Math never lies.